I never expected my life to turn out like this. One decision, one moment of trust in the wrong person, and suddenly everything changed. I was 26, in love, and blind to the lies wrapped in sweet promises. He told me he was trapped in a marriage that was already over, just waiting for the right time to leave. I believed him. I shouldn't have. By the time I realized the truth, it was too late. There was a life growing inside me, and the man I thought I loved, he wanted nothing to do with it. Now, years later, he's back. But why? And more importantly, can I trust him? I was 26 when I met him. Charming, attentive, and with that seasoned confidence only age can bring. He said he was 42, caught in a marriage of paper, a facade for the kids until they grew up. How naive I was to believe it, to see myself as the exception in his mundane life. The thrill of secrecy, the allure of whispered promises, it was intoxicating. But as weeks turned into months, I found myself tethered not just by emotion, but by the delicate life growing inside me. His words played over and over in my mind, a soundtrack of deceit disguised as affection. What could I do but cling to the hope that love would prevail? The revelation of my pregnancy hit him like a cold wind, sharp and unsettling. His once warm eyes now harbored a storm of panic and denial. He tried to convince me that ending it was the only way forward. "Just a trip," he said, "to put this behind us." My heart shattered at the mere suggestion. Yet, standing at the edge of that decision, I chose the harder path, one of defiance and solitude. I disappeared from his life, harboring our secret, shielding the child from the burden of our mistakes. The silence that followed was both a comfort and a curse, an endless echo of the love that could have been. Time, it seems, has a way of unearthing truths we bury deep. Years later, when I least expected, a message found me. His ex-wife, a stranger in every sense, reached out with an unexpected olive branch. She spoke of siblings and connections, of bridging a gap I had long accepted as a permanent chasm. The irony wasn't lost on me. She, the wronged wife, now seeking unity where betrayal had thrived. Suspicion gnawed at me, but curiosity won. A video call peeled back layers of deceit, revealing that my child was not the only secret he harbored. As it turns out, I was one of many, each story a thread in his web of lies. And then came the news of his accident, a twist I never saw coming. Vulnerable and altered, he emerged from the wreckage, suddenly eager to make amends. The years had carved lines on his face, but had they softened his heart? His plea to meet our child was laced with remorse, yet my guard remained firm. The thought of him stepping into our world, rewriting the narrative on his terms, unsettled me. How could I trust a man who had so easily cast us aside? His promises of financial support and paternal devotion felt like hollow echoes of the past. Yet, a part of me wondered if people could truly change, or if this was just another act in his elaborate play. When I told him I was pregnant, I expected shock, maybe even fear, but not this. His face twisted into something unrecognizable, a stranger where my lover had once been. He didn't ask how I felt, didn't wonder about my health. Instead, his mind raced to solutions, cold and calculated. "We can fix this," he said, voice low, urgent. A short trip, a clean slate. My stomach turned. He wasn't asking. He was planning, offering to cover every cost, to make it all disappear, as if this life inside me was just an inconvenience. In that moment, I realized I had never really known him at all. I should have been prepared for his reaction, but denial is a dangerous thing. Even when I refused, even when I made it clear that this child was mine to keep, he kept pushing. Every conversation felt like a negotiation. each word a subtle threat. I stopped answering his calls, avoiding the weight of his disapproval. And then, just like that, he vanished. No more messages, no more pleading, just silence, deafening. And absolute. He had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. Standing alone with a life growing inside me, I understood. This was the price of loving the wrong man. The months that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Fear, anger, resolve. I built a life from the ruins of our affair, learning to find strength in solitude. Friends whispered about legal action, about forcing responsibility onto a man who had already made it clear he wanted nothing to do with us. But I wasn't ready to fight a battle against a ghost. He had erased me, erased us, with chilling efficiency. Maybe it was better this way. At least I knew where we stood, at opposite ends of a bridge that would never be rebuilt. Or so I thought. Because life has a cruel sense of irony, doesn't it? Years later, when I had stopped saying his name, when my child had grown in the light of my love alone, his past caught up with him. But it wasn't him who reached out. It was her, his ex-wife. A woman I had never met, now holding out an unexpected hand. She wanted his children to know each other. She wanted... what, exactly? I hesitated, suspicion creeping in like a shadow. Why now? Why her? And what would I find if I dared to step back into a story I thought had long since ended? The message came out of nowhere. A simple, polite request from a woman I had never met, but who had every reason to hate me. My hands trembled as I read it again. She wanted our children to know each other, to build a bond. To acknowledge what he had spent years pretending didn't exist. I should have deleted it, ignored it. But something about the way she worded it, calm, measured, almost resigned, made me pause. What did she know that I didn't? What had changed after all these years? Against my better judgment, I agreed to a call. Just one. Seeing her face on my screen was surreal. She was nothing like I had imagined. No bitterness, no accusations. Just a woman who had been lied to, just like me. And then, in the gentlest tone, she shattered everything I thought I knew. "You weren't the only one," she said. My breath caught. He had done this before. Many times. Affairs, secrets, more children scattered in the wreckage of his lies. My child was not his only hidden truth. The betrayal I had carried for years, thinking it was unique, was nothing more than a pattern he had perfected. I had been a chapter in his book of deception, and she had been the long-suffering reader, waiting for the final page to turn. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was numb. Had I ever truly mattered to him? Or had I been another piece in his carefully curated double life? His ex-wife, this woman who had every right to despise me, was offering an olive branch where he had left nothing but destruction. She wanted to do what he never had, acknowledge the truth, bring our children together, heal what he had broken. And yet, I hesitated. Was this truly about them? Or was she searching for closure she could never get from him? And did I even want to reopen that wound? Before I could decide, fate made the choice for me. News spread quickly. An accident, serious injuries, a man suddenly forced to face his own mortality. And just like that, he reappeared in my life, not through his own efforts, but through whispers of pity and second chances. Now, the man who had erased me, erased our child, was back. And for the first time in years, he was the one waiting for my answer. The news of his accident should have meant nothing to me. And yet, there I was, staring at my phone, reading the same sentence over and over. He was injured, badly. Something about that felt ironic. The man who had walked away without looking back was now the one reaching out, trying to mend what he had so easily broken. I should have felt satisfaction, maybe even relief. But all I felt was skepticism. Why now? Why after all these years? Was it guilt? Fear? Or just another manipulation, a desperate attempt to rewrite his legacy now that life had humbled him? His first message was cautious, almost rehearsed. He wanted to meet his child. No excuses, no justifications, just a request, as if we could skip over years of silence and start fresh. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. A part of me wanted to say no, to remind him of every tear, every sleepless night, every moment he had stolen from us. But another part of me, the one that had spent years preparing for this possibility, knew that my feelings didn't matter as much as my child's right to decide. So I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. I needed time. And more than that, I needed to know if he was truly different or just playing another role in his never-ending performance. His next move was predictable: money, financial support, a promise to help, as if throwing cash at a situation could erase the years of neglect. I had built a life without him, found a way to survive. And now, suddenly, he wanted to contribute? I let him send what he wanted, but I made one thing clear. Money didn't buy access. If he wanted to be a father, he would have to earn it. No shortcuts, no bargaining. His response was surprisingly measured, almost patient, like a man who knew he had already lost too much and was desperate not to lose more. But trust is not something you reclaim overnight. He thought an apology and a bank transfer would be enough, but he had underestimated me, again. I had spent years learning to live without him, and I wasn't about to let him walk back in and dictate the terms. He could meet his child, but on my terms, slowly, supervised, controlled. And as I watched him try to play the role of a devoted father, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much bigger game. I should have seen it coming. When persuasion didn't work, when charm and guilt failed, he did what men like him always do. He made it official. A legal process. A demand for a DNA test. As if he needed proof of what we both already knew. I read the court papers with a mix of anger and exhaustion. After years of denial, after pretending we didn't exist, now he wanted his name on a piece of paper? Now, when it was convenient for him, part of me wanted to fight, to deny him the satisfaction. But another part knew that this was bigger than my pride. This wasn't just about me anymore. The test was a formality, a clinical confirmation of a truth I had lived with for years. Watching him sit across the room, pretending to be invested, made my stomach turn. He had the nerve to act as if this was difficult for him, as if he were the victim of some tragic misunderstanding. But I didn't react. I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing any emotion on my face. The results came in, 99.99% certainty. The numbers were undeniable. And just like that, he was legally bound to the child he had spent years running. From with recognition came responsibility. He started sending money regularly, gifts appearing at my doorstep with his name attached. It was almost laughable, the way he thought he could buy his way into fatherhood. But I let it happen, not for him, but for my child. If he wanted to contribute, fine. But money didn't erase the past, and it certainly didn't make him a father. The court set up supervised visits, slow and cautious just as I had demanded. He played his part well, attentive, patient, trying to undo years of absence with forced enthusiasm. But my child wasn't easily convinced, and neither was I, because behind the polite smiles and court-mandated visits I could feel it, that itch of something more. He wasn't just here to be a father. He wanted control. He wanted something deeper, something I hadn't yet figured out. And the worst part? I knew this wasn't the end. This was just another move in a game I had no interest in playing. It started subtly, like a whisper in the wind, easy to ignore at first but impossible to unhear once noticed. He was patient, too patient, like a man who had rehearsed this part before. The gifts became more thoughtful, the messages more personal. He stopped talking about just our child and started bringing me into the conversation. "You've done an amazing job," he'd say. "I should have been there." Regret dripped from his words, but I wasn't fooled. This wasn't just guilt. This was strategy, and I knew exactly where it was headed. Then came the offers, little temptations, wrapped in concern. "Let me help with your debts," he suggested one evening, as if money could erase the sleepless nights, the fear, the loneliness he had left behind. "Let me take care of things." But I had taken care of things. Without him. And now, after years of silence, he wanted to play savior? I refused, of course. But he didn't give up. "We could make this easier for our child," he added, as if rewriting history was an option. "Maybe even give him my last name. A fresh start," he called it. As if a name could change the years of absence, as if a surname could undo the choices he had made. And then, the final move, the one I had been waiting for. "We could try again." The words hung between us, heavy and deliberate. I almost laughed. He spoke as if we had been something real, as if what we had was more than stolen moments built on lies. He painted a future where we were a family, where the past was just a misunderstanding instead of a betrayal. "For our child," he insisted. That was the hook, the justification. But I saw through it. This wasn't about love. It wasn't even about regret. This was about control, about rewriting his legacy, reshaping the story to make him the man he wished he had been. I let him talk, let him believe he was planting doubt in my mind. But deep down, I already knew the answer. People like him don't change, they adapt. And no matter how well he played the role of the reformed man, I wasn't the same woman he had left behind. He could offer all the money, all the apologies, all the carefully crafted words. But I had already learned my lesson, and I wasn't about to let history repeat itself. My child was hesitant around him, reserved, uncertain, as if instinctively sensing the gap that years of absence had carved between them. The visits were polite, structured, like two strangers, trying to find common ground where none existed. He tried to be warm, to be patient, but the connection wasn't automatic. And that frustrated him. I could see it in the way his smile faltered when our child clung to me instead of him, in the way his eyes darkened when conversations felt forced. He wanted instant redemption, instant acceptance. But real relationships aren't built overnight. And certainly not after years of silence. Despite everything, I could admit, he was trying. He showed up. He followed the rules. He played the part of the father he had never been. And maybe in another life, another story, that would have been enough. But something in me refused to lower my guard. I had seen this side of him before. The charm, the persistence, the careful maneuvering. It was the same man who once convinced me that I was special, that I was different. Now he was using the same tactics, just with a different goal. And the worst part? For a fleeting second, I almost wanted to believe him. Then came Christmas. He organized a small gathering, something simple yet meaningful. For the first time, I watched him interact with our child outside the sterile structure of supervised visits. He was careful, thoughtful, playing his role well. And for a moment, just a brief moment, I allowed myself to wonder, what if? What if this time was different? What if he truly had changed? The thought lingered, dangerous and tempting. And then, as if sensing my hesitation, he struck. "We could be a family again," he murmured, his voice low, intimate. "We could Fix this. But there was nothing to fix, because there had never been an us to begin with. He wasn't looking for love. He was looking for redemption. And I refused to be the woman who handed it to him. So I did the one thing he never expected. I turned him down. Firmly. Finally. His expression was unreadable, a flicker of something I couldn't quite name. But I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. Not yet. He hasn't stopped trying. If anything, my rejection only fueled his determination. Every conversation, every visit, there's always an undertone, an unspoken pressure, a quiet insistence that this story isn't finished. He frames it as concern, as fatherly devotion, but I see the pattern. He doesn't just want a relationship with our child, he wants proximity to me. And I refuse to let him rewrite the past just because he's finally ready to face it. I keep things strictly about our child, nothing more. No long conversations, no shared moments beyond what's necessary. And he hates it. He pushes, suggests we spend time together, tries to blur the boundaries I've set. But I hold firm. My child deserves stability, not a man who treats fatherhood like a role he can step into whenever it suits him. I've built a life without him, and I won't risk that just because he's suddenly decided he wants to play hero. The hardest part? Sometimes I catch myself remembering the way I once felt, the naive hope that he might have been different. But those thoughts don't last long, because the truth is, I've seen who he is, and I won't let nostalgia cloud the reality of what he's done. He's not the man I loved. He's the man who left. And that's a truth I refuse to forget. This story isn't just mine, it's a warning. A reminder that people reveal who they are, and when they do, believe them. I learned that the hard way, and now I make sure my child never has to.
Keep watching our stories by clicking on one of the videos that appear on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be alerted about new videos. See you next time.